Hello, everybody. This is Signal and Insights, the podcast. I am Gabriel Velez, CEO of Crowd Answers. This is the show where we sit down with the people shaping how business grows, sell, and make smarter decisions. My guest today has spent more than 40 years in marketing, working with names like American Airlines, Coca-Cola, MasterCard, and National Geographic. And along the way, he became known as the marketing doctor because he treats marketing like medicine. Diagnose first, prescribe second, and no guesswork. Today, he's a fractional CMO, bringing that research-driven approach to middle market and private equity portfolio companies. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gabriel. I'm pleased to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about your story, your background. You have spent 4 years in marketing and somewhere along the way became the marketing doctor. So where did diagnose before you prescribe philosophy actually come from? Was there a moment it clicked for you?
It was not necessarily a moment. It was a series of things. To go back to the beginning, I was trained in college as a physician. So I went to medical school. I worked in Harvard teaching hospitals, went through rotations in the emergency room, the research labs, psychology, you name it. And through all those classes, they drilled the scientific method into our heads. You build a hypothesis, you build an experiment to test that hypothesis, you gather data, you read the data and analyze it, and you adjust and re-experiment over and over and over again. And as maybe 10 years ago, when sales funnels were just starting and all the digital marketing was coming out and people realized that you needed to iterate and get better and better to make sure these channels were optimized, it struck me that this is exactly the same framework as agile business. It's exactly the same framework as EOS. It's exactly the same framework as channel optimization and every other thing. It's the same framework that the algorithms in Facebook use to analyze programmatic advertising and optimize it. It's test, fail, repeat. It's the same thing over and over again. And having been through a medical practice and looking at the similarities between treating business and treating patients, it sort of made natural sense to me to approach each company as if it were a patient.
That's your whole approach centers on what you call customer insights research. You have said that is widely underused. What it is actually, and why you think most companies skip it?
There are several reasons. I learned about customer insight research when I was working with Coca-Cola and with Walt Disney. And to a certain degree, some other big companies back then, including Qantas Airlines. Companies think they know their customers really well. And when you dig down deep and start actually talking to them in long form interviews and not just, whipping a survey out there on LinkedIn, you actually have to talk to customers in order to find out what they like, what they don't like, what they prefer, how they think of you, what sort of memorized position they have in their mind for your company, how their brand hits. It's a very in-depth look at what your customers think and, more importantly, how they feel about the company and the purchases they make from you. And most companies do not delve into this because, especially the ones that grew from a startup, the founder knows those customers supposedly because he sold the initial ones. And that sales conversation got him where he's going. So he's under the impression that he knows those customers' preferences and likes and dislikes and everything else. Those interviews repeatedly and often show that that's not necessarily the case, or at least not fully the case. They know them from one standpoint, through a sales lens. They don't know them through a buyer lens, which is a very different point of view. I use customer insight research, specifically long form interviews with 20 or 30 of your best customers to gather insights and data points that you'll not get any other way. No other method can come close to this. And the data that you gather from this has so many uses and so much variance and so many applications. I use it primarily to start building the structure, the strategy that companies can employ to move forward on a growth path. Because if you're giving the customer what they want from a marketing standpoint, if you're giving them the product they're asking for, if they're giving them the things that they feel they need from you to make them feel good about buying from you, it's very difficult to go wrong if you're really doing this correctly. So being able to have assurance in the data and accuracy in the data gives you the confidence to move forward and build structures and build systems and build channels that will actually move the needle on revenue when you're doing the market. And that's why I adopted it, because it's data-based, but it allows for variance between individuals. It allows for variance in creative approach. It lets me cover all the bases between the creative side and the data management side in marketing. And it's one of the few disciplines that actually allows for that. And it makes good sense to me to do that. It falls right in line with, if you listen to the patient, they will tell you what's wrong, even if they're not saying it. And there are so many other cues in both instances. Doctors, when they go in to do an initial intake interview, are looking at you, they're listening to you, they're seeing how your body language is, they're seeing if you have an odor. They're seeing what your skin tone looks like. They're seeing what your hair looks like. I'm doing those same assessments when I go into a company. I'm checking for health. I'm checking for attitude, approach, culture, all those things in the company itself. Then, if I see that they're mirroring the brand out to the public, I can test that theory against what the public's feelings and preferences are for the company's brand or their products or their services. This has got wide appeal. There's very few instances where this doesn't reveal a solid strategy for going forward. So that's where it came from, and that's why I use it.
That's a great conjunction of, like a vision and clarity of execution. And I am curious to understand why you pick currently this kind of companies, the middle market and P portfolio businesses. What made you to basically focus on that kind of companies? It was from the very beginning, or this had been something that basically evolved during your career?
Well, I've worked with very big companies. I've worked with startups. I've worked with trade associations and nonprofits, government. I was a federal contractor for a while. It really just depends on what you prefer. And when I looked at who the most likely target was for hiring fractional CMOs, PE portcos seemed to make the most sense. They fell within the parameters of size, 10 million plus to upwards to 50 and beyond. That size company with about 200 seats or less is very likely to be able to take advantage of the economic benefits that a fractional CMO gives you. And the need for senior leadership and wisdom is there, but not necessarily on a full-time basis for budget reasons and for growth reasons. They may not quite need a full-timer or may not be able to afford it. So that kind of fit within all the different parameters. And when you look at where those companies reside and where they end up, private equity has been buying companies that size because there's upside potential to them. So there's room for growth. There's a purpose to growth and scale. And especially the B2B software folks focused almost to the exclusion of everything else on scale and growth when they start, because of the nature of those companies, especially software. If you're a manufacturing organization and you're building a widget, say, that widget has production costs, it has labor costs, it has distribution costs, trucking, inventory carrying charges, all the good stuff. Software doesn't have almost any of that. They build one template, they collect a link to it, and they put it out there, and people pay them to get access to the link. It reproduces itself free, it distributes itself free. There are very, very minimal things weighing on the profit line for software companies. So they can look to scale as not only credibility, but profitability very early on. So knowing how to scale and grow companies seems to be very important. And marketing is a huge growth engine for scale and growth. And that's what I try and put in place for people, is all the processes and systems that allow them to take advantage of that increased profitability based on the type of business they are.
That's great way to put it. And of course, it comes with the understanding on the industry and the company and industry dynamics. And let me push a little bit. The fractional CMO space is crowded right now, right? You can see like a full of digital agencies telling, hey, we offer fractional CMO services. And when a PE operator is choosing between you and others, how do you prove you are the real thing? And on another, pitch, how you differentiate yourself?
Some of it has to do with simple seniority. Having been here 40 years, most portco operators are looking for somebody to step in and have impact immediately. And the been there, done that approach that I take allows me to do that. Also, spending years as a consultant, getting up to speed on different industries is second nature at this point. I don't take months. I take days. And it's much to their advantage to hire somebody that can get up to speed that fast when it's not something they've necessarily worked on before. aside from a few industries where there are specific regulations like HIPAA in healthcare or FINRA and SEC in financial services and stocks, business is business at the basic ground level. You're there to create a product or a service and sell it to the public. And if you can figure out what those emotional drivers are behind that purchase and exploit them to the point where you can make somebody have an emotional reaction and engage in a transaction, that's what business is. So it's easy to get up to speed on the basics because in many cases, especially in those portcos, the basics aren't there. The processes aren't built correctly. The stuff is not wired very tight together on a digital basis. Some of the data is very, very corrupted and in bad shape. So I start off with those companies building almost from the ground up in many cases, because if you don't build the foundation correctly, like any construction worker will tell you, the house will fall down. And you can throw as many bricks and siding as you want at it. It's not going to help if the foundation is not solid. So I go in and do assessments immediately on whether they're hitting their ICP, whether they're getting to the core of the matter. The insight research can tell me things like, is the product really suited to the audience? Is there good fit there between the product and the market they're going after? It may be that after time, the target has shifted. It may be that the audience has changed. Yeah, I've had insight research uncover what the pharmaceutical industry calls off-label uses, alternative uses for the same product. I give as an example Clorox. It doesn't just bleach clothes. There's 100,000 uses for Clorox. And you notice they've done many, many partnerships with other cleaning products of various types to expand that brand. And by now it's become such a household name that it's taken over for the generic bleach. That's kind of the brand permanence that you're looking for in all this stuff. If you can be the category leader, and by adding you to another product or adding another product to what you offer, you're now expanding your reach beyond your initial target, you kind of need to make some shifts to adjust for that. And the research will show me how to do that. It will show up things like, oh, I'd buy 100 of these if they were just made for left-handed people. Or I really prefer blue over red because it reflects better on, safety signs, or who knows what it is. But if they will give you their preferences, they will give you their feedback to help you develop the product market fit, you're well on your way to matching the goal. And that's what's going to help you scale up. As soon as you hit that target square in the money, you'll be amazed at how easy it is to get bigger faster, because you're selling to people that want the stuff. You're not forcing it down their throats. They want it. You're creating demand and capturing that demand in your marketing efforts.
I like your approach and the way that basically you convey that insights alone doesn't produce change. It needs to be basically connected with um, an idea that basically transcend the company, like a mission, vision, and basically how to motivate and act on that. So yeah, that's a good way
Absolutely.
to put it.
We look at it as if the information gleaned from this is not actionable, then it isn't valuable. If I can't make a decision based on the information I've gleaned and make the right decision based on knowing that it's correct, then I've wasted your time and your money.
That's correct. You mentioned a product that started like a one way and shifted to another. I have one big example that is all the GLP-4 or all the Ozempic type of medicament that basically started as a diabetes thing, and right now has been progressing to a big business that sometimes is bigger than we expect. So yeah.
And it's often the simple things. Another good example from Big Pharma, that since you mentioned the GLP-1, is Propecia, hair growth. That was originally a drug designed for cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy because they lost their eyelashes and their eyebrows along with their hair. And without your eyelashes, you'd be amazed how many things fly into your eye on a daily basis, and it creates damage. They're there to protect your eye. Without them, you feel naked. And it bothers you psychologically, it bothers you physically. So they developed Propecia to help them grow their eyelashes back more quickly so they were not as vulnerable. So now they realize, well, not only is it growing back their eyelashes and their eyebrows, it's growing back the hair on their head too, and everywhere else. We've been looking for a baldness cure for 500 years. Nobody's been able to find one. This is the closest thing we have. Why don't we put a new package on this thing, regulate it, and dosage it properly for that particular outcome, package it up as a shampoo, as a pill, whatever, slap whatever warning labels we need to on it, because there are some downsides to this, and market it as the great big baldness cure. And they made billions off of doing exactly that. from something they never would have discovered had it not dawned on them that there might be another use for this thing.
100%. It was like I remember the old example of the Coca-Cola that started as a syrup for the cough, and then someone discovered a different use. So it has to be with that, right? This
Yep.
insight
Innovation is critical, but
moment.
finding an outlet for that innovation and finding an application for that innovation and finding a new way to approach it, to package it, to sell it, that's where the rubber meets the road for marketing. And that research indicates things like packaging size, convenience of the outer package, the inner package, the level of safety people need to require to feel good about buying it, the color scheme that needs to go with it to reflect the product, to drive the audience in a correct way. Anything with a green label on it is now seen as natural or organic. Anything with a blue label is seen as clean or sanitary. Anything with a red label is seen as either spicy or hot or otherwise effective. You'd be amazed at the difference a color on a packaging can make in shelf sales and how many SKUs you need. It comes down to that level. And that research will highlight that stuff. If you dig in deep enough, you'll find it.
100%. And sometimes it's like a mix of data, of course, and sometimes the big jumps, evolutionary jumps, also come from like educated intuition, right? If you want, for example, in a shelf to be present and basically be seen, sometimes you need to create some sort of contrast. And if this contrast needs to break the rules of the category, it could be beneficial, but it could be harmful. And it's always basically a mix of like a right and left brain to understanding to what degree changing a category that is red to a blue will benefit or will affect. And
all
that's
that can be studied. There are scientific studies that back up your decisions for almost all of that stuff. But you're right. I wrote a piece not too long ago on whether you should use your gut instinct to make decisions. And there's a real reason why that exists. Your gut is basically a series of subconsciously absorbed observations based on time and history. So if you look back, we are evolutionarily hardwired to look for patterns because we spent a good deal of our early existence checking the savanna grasses for that saber-toothed tiger that was waiting to eat us. We needed to recognize what one of those looked like and apply pattern recognition to it. Now, we do the same things when you talk about a business that you don't quite get or seems a little off, or a person that seems a little off that's approaching you. That is based on experience and instinct honed over thousands and thousands of years as to what is right in the pattern and what does not match the pattern. So that's really what your gut instinct is observation absorbed subconsciously. You can listen to that. You can trust that to a great degree based on its historical success. We're still here, which is the success of all. And you need data to back it up. Almost every purchase decision you've ever made is emotional. It's based on gut instinct. It's emotion. Now, what we do is intellectualize it and turn to intellect to justify the purchase. We tell ourselves, I bought this because it's a safety product. I bought this because it works better. I bought this because it's purple, or it fits my shelf, or it makes the car go faster, or whatever. You're intellectualizing the purchasing decision. What it really was is you looked on the shelf and said, that's cool, I got to have that. It created an emotion. It sparked a reaction in you, and you said, okay, my gut says this is all right, and this is going to fit my need, and this is what it is. You intellectualize the rest in order to justify the purchase to others. That's what it's for. So when you're doing business-to-business sales, now you're not only justifying one person's emotions, you're justifying a whole buying committee's person's worth of emotions, each of which has a different agenda, each of which has a different goal, and each of which needs a different sales approach in order to close the deal. That's what makes B2B so difficult in many cases, because you've got 15 different emotions running, all looking for a single logical, knowledgeable, intellectual justification. It's very hard to dovetail all that together.
Yeah. And sometimes we as a human tend to overcomplicate things that are fairly simple and basically are rooted more in the human behaviors and emotions. And we need to basically come back to the basics. It's very important.
Does it make sense? Is it reasonable? Is it cheap enough that it's not going to break me if I make a mistake? That's it. That's really all it is.
Yeah. We need the justification. So
that's all it is. Can I not look foolish when I explain why I bought this to somebody else?
100%. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about AI. So you mentioned that you post, I think, a few months ago that forcing AI into a P porco ahead of the curve could tank the company. So what does not ready for AI actually look like inside a portfolio company marketing? What breaks first, in your opinion?
Typically what will happen is, especially during, say, a Portco roll-up, you've got 4 or 5 pharmacies you're trying to draw under one brand, or you've got 4 or 5 roofing companies or service companies or whatever. One, each has a different culture, and you're going to have a heck of a time integrating them all and not throwing out the baby with the bathwater when you're trying to put processes and systems in place. One, they're going to resist. Two, they're going to resist because change is inevitable and people don't like change. And three, you're going to change things that probably shouldn't be changed because they're central to the reason people bought from them in the first place, and now you're eliminating them. You're alienating the existing audience. All three are bad. Now, take an AI overlay. You're now going to automate those processes that we've determined are either bad, poorly thought out, inappropriate, or outdated, and you've made them run 10,000 times faster, and you've made them so that there's no backup or recourse for human evaluation or empathy. That's going to create a problem. Something is going to break. Humans make a judgment on whether that's a good customer or not, whether they've been called out for the same service 9 times for the same thing because the lady's lonely, whether that house is dangerous because it's fallen apart and you send your technicians out to it and they're likely to fall through the floor and hurt themselves, and whether your insurance will cover that. A human being doing the scheduling will notice that there's a pattern with that person calling in every week for the same problem. The AI may not. It's simply a service call. It's going to make a yay or nay. Am I going to get paid to do this? Yes. Send a technician. It's those kinds of pattern recognitions that people tend to automate because they're routine, they're repeatable, they're things that are good targets for automation if the system is correct. All it takes is one variance from that system that's not correct, and the AI will make a decision that is less than optimal, and that can spin out of control very quickly. So unless those systems and processes have really been broken down and taken apart step by step by step by step, analyzed for whether they are correct in every instance. Now, you can build exceptions into things, but it's very difficult to encounter them all. Sooner or later, it's going to hit a roadblock, and a human is going to have to step in and make a decision. If you are not prepared for that moment, or you're not ready to accept that moment quickly enough, i.e. when that lead comes in and it's not the right lead, somebody in the sales department's got to raise their hand and go, why is this guy calling me? He has no use for our product whatsoever. This is not a good customer. The AI is not going to make that decision for you. They tick the boxes, therefore they win. But the human being is going to look at that and go, it ticks the boxes one way, but it doesn't really tick it the way we do it. And therefore, it's not a good customer. I think we're not going to pursue this. Those kinds of systems, unless you've covered every possible contingency, are going to hit roadblocks eventually. And not only they're going to hit them fast. And you're going to have to react and fix whatever it is the AI has put you in, whatever situation it has drawn you into, and make apologies and excuses and possibly lose what could potentially be good business. Or worse, engage in business that's not good and it's going to start drawing on resources that it shouldn't be, and your profitability levels drop like a rock.
Yeah, and in some, I like that read. And in some cases, you realize that the mistake has been done, is late, right? Because a lot of problems have arisen, customer have left, or even you have basically laid off people or teams or change ways to work that were necessary to the business.
There are lots of things that AI can do well. One of them, which nobody looks at because they see it as failure, is a stress test. AI will stress test your systems because somewhere along the line, there's a system where a human being is using judgment to say, yes, this is good, or no, this is not right, or I can fix this another way. It's much cheaper. Let's do it that way. Those kinds of judgments, those kinds of decision-making, AI doesn't do well. AI does things within a set of guardrails. And if those guardrails aren't wide enough to allow it the latitude to make those decisions for you, the humans have been covering up the discrepancies and the variances, and the AI is not going to do that. So it's going to surface a lot of errors and broken parts of the process when you implement it, and it's going to fail fast.
Yeah, I agree. And some of these, because I have been talking with a lot of business owners, can be solved or can be diminished if from the beginning, basically the OKRs or the key objectives are defined before they start implementations. But the problem is that so many companies start implementing and automating processes without understanding the real implications not only in the process they are changing, but in the whole organization. Sometimes it's very difficult because they don't know, right? It's the first time that you're doing this in this portfolio of companies, so you really don't, you can't oversee all the problems that is gonna create. So yeah, I mean, I feel. Let me know your thought that the best approach in that is do go a little bit slower, and being sure that you have the human in the loop and in the center. So basically, aware of everything. Because I agree with you, humans are the ones who are able to connect the dots and understand the different layers of things, right? The different realities that are happening at the same time. That sometimes AI is not capable just because it was not designed to do that, but just to act in a certain way.
Certainly. I typically counsel customers that are thinking of implementing AI or are dying to implement AI on certain things to do 3 things with it in order to get started properly. 1, sequester, set up a test bed and only approach a certain portion of what it is you're trying to do with the AI first to see if it actually works. You can always expand later. You can always cross over and cross pollinate later. If it turns out that process is wonderful company wide, terrific. Implement it all the way across. Great. You've won. 2, make sure there are what called circuit breakers or breakpoints within the automated workflow, so that there's a point where a human has to step in at some point to examine, to judge, to push the go button again to say, yes, please proceed based on these criteria, because that's where you're going to save yourself. That circuit breaker is there for a reason. It's going to, when you hit that wall when something is broken, now it's a natural part of the process for the human to step in. It's not a panic. It's a daily thing. It's a Tuesday. So yeah, we're going to get in there and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it properly. We're not going to panic when it happens. And 3, only go with a small segment of the audience that you're applying this to, not to everyone at once. There's going to be some backlash against AI. It's already happening. Chatbots have come a long, long way since they were first implemented well over 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And people are having a greater difficulty determining whether it's human or a chatbot on the other end of that customer service line because they are so good. What you do, though, is you'll catch it. It'll repeat itself word for word over a long phrase. You know it sounds like a recording. Or it will keep asking the same question over and over again because whatever answer you're giving it wasn't within its data set. It's lost. It doesn't know what to do. It runs home to mama and keeps asking the same question over and over again until it gets the answer that it understands. So putting the human being as the circuit breaker allows you to step in when that happens and go, okay, now I get what you're talking about. And the human picks up the conversation and away it goes. Those kinds of things can save you from the entire thing running amok before you can save it.
Yeah. 100%. And I agree with that. And I think it's not just any human being, but like the strategic and leadership or managerial mindset put into that. Like that was the reason companies hire someone like you, right? Because those decisions needs to be either on marketing or leadership. I have seen companies that basically let procurement or IT like a drive AI initiatives, and they don't have the mindset ready to do the things in the right way. Like hey, let's do this testing, let's understand first the OKRs, let's do trial and error, and then we scale. And that's why it's very important to have people like you and with your mindset in those organizations. Let me ask you about other topic that is the PE Portco squeeze. The deal volume is down, right? The PE deal volume, the deal sizes are way up, and Portcos are under serious board pressure to show scalable growth fast, right? For a Portco that needs marketing leadership but can't justify a full-time CMO, what does the first 90 days with you actually look like?
That's a great question. You're right in that there are certainly upward and downward pressure for growth to happen and the impact to be immediate. The benefits of being a fractional are I'm not wasting time in meetings I shouldn't be in. I'm able to sort of swoop in and approach the areas where I can make the most impact the most quickly, which makes the board happy because they're starting to see wins very early. It also means that I'm the most budgetarily efficient approach to solving the problem. It's not going to take me 6 months to ramp up, and it's not going to cost you $350,000 for the year to figure it out. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's higher impact, and most of it has to do with that pattern recognition we talked about. I've been there, I've done it, I've seen it. I can go right to the heart of the problem quickly and make the adjustment that's necessary to give them the advantage that they need to move forward quickly and to scale. Knowing where those problems lie, many a consultant has been queried as to why their rates are the way they are. My rates are around $300 an hour, and I may go in there and rewrite 1 page of copy for that hour, and that's not necessarily worth $300. AI could do it in 5 minutes and do almost as well. But here's the thing. You didn't pay me the $300 for that hour. You paid me the $300 for the 10,000 hours it took me to learn how to do that in half an hour. That's what you're paying for. The AI doesn't have that either. So the advantage to that is my first 90 days looks very accelerated because there's very little waste. It's very efficient. By doing the research up front, I can go forward with great assurance and test less and win more. And that's one of the big differentiators. Not only do I have the seniority and the perspective of 40 years to look back and go, I've seen this problem in this industry. Let's see if this is the problem here as well. And if it is, I've already got the fix in mind. Been there, done that syndrome. The other thing is, by starting with that insight research, I can now be the voice of the customer. And the IT department is not going to be the voice of the customer in implementing this AI. So knowing what customers like already, all the pitfalls from what the AI could possibly do to an incoming customer or potential customer, I can sidestep. I can miss that pothole and not have that customer react badly and disappear on them. They can capture that demand and they can make sure that that growth happens. So by more wins, higher close rate, better brand, better product market fit, all those good parameters that we talked about, the OKRs, now suddenly profitability and scale isn't so difficult. You're not swimming up tide. You're not swimming upstream. You're now going with the flow and everything's working correctly because you're talking to the right people about the right things at the right time with the right message in the right way. That's the beauty of the whole thing. That's what those first 90 days look like. Assess, set the hypothesis, build the experiments, run them, gather the data, and move forward with a strategy. And it's not just a deck and forget. Got to remember too, as a senior executive, I'm embedded in that C-suite. I'm taking decision-making authority over that P&L. I'm making sure that my numbers hit. It's not like I'm an attorney. Well, if you lose the case and go to jail, there's no skin off my nose. I still get paid. That doesn't work that way. I'm taking authority and responsibility for those numbers, for those losses. And I have to be able to stand in front of that board and go, this is what happened, and here's why, and here's what we're doing to fix it. So that's the other thing is the accountability that comes with a fractional that gives me the advantage over a consultant, is that I'm there when you need them. I'm not just handing you a deck in 90 days and saying, hey, run with it.
And that based, of course, on your experience, right? And if you think about the clients that you help, maybe if you can tell me what they have to have, or maybe a specific industry, maybe a specific thing that you tackle. If you remember one example of basically, hey, this is where I am most successful and I enjoy the most working with a client.
That's interesting because there are so many different directions that I've gone in various places over the years. I loved working with the airlines. I loved working with Disney. I loved working with some of the big companies because they had a lot of resources and they had a great amount of resilience. You could fail pretty spectacularly and the company was not going to go under. So nobody was terribly worried about you. The very small companies are much more difficult. They're much more frugal. There's far less resilience built into them, far less elasticity in their bottom line.
They have one product sometimes, or like 50% of my revenue.
Yeah, you screw up a $2 million company, I could spend that in an afternoon on marketing if I wanted to. And it's a mistake to do so, of course. But yeah, those kind of things, the best clients I've had are the biggest and the most understanding, the best educated clients, the ones that understand marketing the best and realize that it's not a gumball machine. It's not a put money in and get product out. It's not spend budget and get leads automatically like a faucet. They understand that there's some elasticity in all this and it takes time to develop and things need time to breathe and flourish, and that brand has to come along with performance at the same time. And that while it may not be directly attributable, they have the faith to understand that it needs to be there and that it's an investment that compounds over time, just like other investments do. And the key to that is making sure that the CFO gets it, that you're talking his language. You're making sure that you're talking about cost of client acquisition. You're talking about lifetime value. You're talking about payback schedules, and you're talking about return on investment. You're talking about things that, in a language that he understands, that actually move the needle for the business itself. You're not talking about likes and engagement and brand value and all those things, because he's looking at you like you got two heads. That doesn't make any sense to him. If you got the CFO on your side and the CEO steps in line and says, guys, you've clearly got this, I'm going to go play golf. That's my day. That's who I'm looking for. It's the people that do that. The client that pays you $500 a month is going to nickel and dime you to death and wonder where you spent every penny. The client that spends $5,000 a month is going to go, hey, where do I write the check? It's a much different scenario. It's a much different alignment, and it's a much more productive thing if you give things the space to breathe and the space to maneuver. Micromanagement kills all of this, and it happens more often than you'd care to count, because founders have a hard time letting go of this. They just do. So the PE angle comes in because they'll put an operator in place. He's got goals. He's got ambitions. It's all about money and numbers. He's not married to the thing ideologically. He's not married to the company emotionally. He's not going to say, well, I kind of like marketing, so I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to do it the way I've always done it, whether it's right or not, because I learned it the hard way. Okay, well, that may or may not be the best solution for the company as a whole. The operator's not going to say that. The operator's going to go, I hired this guy. Step back, let him do what he does.
Yeah. A hot heart, but cold mind. So
that's the way to look at it. Passion is wonderful. Save it for your spouse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And the clients, those clients basically that come to you, what is how they usually find their way to you? How do you usually get new clients?
Usually it's through something I published. Not only did I publish the book, which people have read world over, but is also required reading in business marketing courses in a number of universities at this point. But also things like social media platforms. People can find me there. Networking, of course, here in the Baltimore area and in Washington, D.C., networking is one of the major attractions to all of this. And people find me because they know a friend of theirs who really made out like a bandit by hiring me, and I made them some money, and they're very happy with that. So they come back and find me as a result, trying to repeat that, which is fine. I'm happy to do it if they fit the parameters that I'm looking for, and if they have the understanding that this requires some investment and some effort and takes some time. With those three things in line, we're all about it. We'll go to it no matter what industry it is. It doesn't matter. I'm industry agnostic. So it's not like I'm camping out in one particular type of industry and going, okay, I'm now a specialist at this. I'm taking the other approach where I'm not platform specific. I'm not industry specific. I am utility specific. Anything about marketing, you can come and find me. I'm not going to get involved in operations. I'm certainly not going to get involved in your accounting department. I'm not going to talk about billing. I'm not going to talk about things that are outside of the parameters of marketing. But by golly, all those things are tied to me. So I have to know about them as well. And that gives me an edge. That lets people find me from the most odd corners of the planet.
Yeah, I can see that. And of course, right now with the social media and internet and everything, it's very easy to get contacted by people from, different spheres. And I also feel that your experience can transpire others areas. For example, academia. I'm curious to hear if you have experience teaching, because I assure that some students will be delighted to have you as a professor or as a mentor for their career.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And in fact, you're right. I do actually offer entrepreneurship courses to local colleges and universities here in the Baltimore, Washington area, and have taught a course for many years about beginning entrepreneurship and how to get started and how to assess those ideas and how to run them through sort of a process or a checklist to see if they're going to be viable and if they meet the criteria for something that could be turned into a successful business. And their students, especially some of the community college students, are very, very attentive and very into this because they've lived in the real world. They're not, 19-year-old neophytes who've not done anything. These are people that work for a living, and they go out and they want financial freedom. They want to find a better way than just clocking a clock and collecting a check. They want to be in control of their lives and have control over what they do. And the first lecture is always interesting because you can see their faces fall. I give them as honest an assessment I can of what life is like as a real entrepreneur. Remember that family vacation you took last year? Kiss it goodbye. First year, you're not going to have one. You're going to be busy. Remember that financial freedom you're looking for? Probably a good 5 to 6 years down the road. Remember those hours you used to look forward to on the weekends? See ya. kiss them goodbye. They're not going to be around for a while. Remember that family you got that you love to spend time with? Better take good pictures because you're not going to see it. The sacrifices that an entrepreneur has to make and the thought process that has to change, the mindset that has to change. Everything needs to be focused on that business if it even has a ghost of a chance of success. Jeff Bezos talks about this all the time, how he started with Amazon in his garage. He slept, breathed, and used that business 100%, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for years in order to assure that its growth pattern was correct and that it was set up properly. They abandon at the loss of everything else. You sacrifice it all to do it. But the payoffs at the end are spectacular if you do it right. Now, that's 1 in 10, maybe, if you're lucky, 1 in 10 actually go. Average business, 80% of them fail within the first 5 years. Those kinds of statistics will make a senior student sit up and take notice because now he's gambling with his own well-being and his own livelihood. Now he's got to really wonder, is this worth the risk? The ones that believe in themselves, the ones that believe in the process, the ones that have faith that what they're doing is correct and are willing to put in the work, those are the guys that succeed. They're the guys that have the vision. They're the guys that are willing to sacrifice everything to get it. And you see that. You see them on Shark Tank where they've spent 10 years developing this silly little widget that they're trying to sell to these guys. And the numbers they're tossing around are astronomical. You'll notice the first question they ask is, what are your sales last year? You don't even have that number in your head, then you're in the wrong business. They don't care how many years it took you to develop it. They don't tell you how much it costs to develop it. They don't want to hear how many hours you spent. How many did you sell? That's all they want to know.
Yeah.
So if you have that number at your fingertips and you make their eyebrows go like this with the answer, you've won. The presentation's over. That's all they care about. And that's right back to our friends at private equity doing exactly the same thing. If you've got all your metrics in a row and your stuff looks good on paper and you've got solid sales and solid EBITDA, they are going to be all about it. And whether they can keep that going without you, and whether they're buying you or whether they're buying a business that functions without you, that's the culture call. That's the judgment call at the end. And even some of those don't go very well. You notice that deals are bigger and that the pressure is higher. Hold periods are 30% longer than they were 3 years ago. The pump and dump in 4 years is not happening anymore. You're not going to get that growth in 4 years. You're not going to see it. Now they're extended to 7. And guess what? You're not at 3% anymore. You're borrowed at 7. Guess what? The math ain't mathing in a lot of cases after that. Between those two, the boards get very grumpy when things have to get extended beyond a certain point because they're getting a little impatient and they're wondering when they're going to see their returns. So the math has changed in PE. I can help you put the math back so that it works because the growth engine for marketing is what's pushing all this in the right direction.
That's golden. You mentioned many things that I align with, and yeah, definitely. It's like I even have topics for a future podcast. I also have been teaching entrepreneurship in Miami. In the Miami-Dade College, and yeah, you feel all these students basically eager to learn things, and sometimes we tend as like a professor to just sugarcoat it all the entrepreneurships with the TED Talk stuff about have a dream and blah blah blah, and this is the kind of conversation that they really need at the beginning, because basically it sits them exactly where they need to be seated. It's not like a sweet thing. Well, it could be sweet as well, but they need to get ready for the storms to come, because it is not the other way around.
Establishing the proper mindset is critical. You have to look at everything through a certain lens if you're going to be an entrepreneur. And that lens often is very stubborn and very skewed and very biased. But if it's biased in the right direction, you got a winner. It's amazing. The guy that keeps giving the career advice will follow your passion. Okay, follow your passion onto the basketball court. Maybe you'll win. Follow your passion into business and it's a sinkhole. You need something that makes money.
Yeah, make money first, and then
be passionate about making money. There you go.
Exactly, be passionate about that. Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, 40 plus years, a book, a brand, still talking on new podcasts. What about diagnosing a company's marketing and watching the prescription works that keeps you doing this?
It is a very satisfying thing when you look back after a year and you've gone down the tick list in your scope of work in the contract, and you've not only ticked all the boxes, you've exceeded their expectations, you're ahead of schedule, and you've grown a team that really can go on without you. Those things are very, very rewarding. My job is to work my way out of a job because I built a team that works without me. The processes are established. The brand has a spokesman. You have people that are solidifying all the cross collaborations with other departments. The bridges are built. Everybody's speaking the same language. They're all on the same page, rowing in the same direction. And it's not just busy, but it's really productive. And it's actually tied to revenue, and it's moving the needle on the business in the proper way. Very, very satisfying. And to have been part of that, to have been able to point to that and go, I did that. I fixed that. I told them to say that. Or we learned that that's the best way to say it. One recent engagement was with a community bank, and it's hard for people to make the bridge between doing customer research and a bank because there's no real purchase there. There's a selection, but there's no real purchase. Banks make money in different ways than the average business does. So you have to look at it in a little different way. And by framing and using that customer research to frame messaging, to frame geofencing of all things, to frame signage, to frame color palette, to frame branding, to frame different products that the bank is offering in terms of how it's structured and what the messaging is and what's important to the customer, can make all the difference in the world. We watch profitability climb on certain types of accounts radically. I mean, it was 20, 30, 40% increases in people selecting a particular type of account in a bank, of all things, because we hit the highlights that people were really concerned with, not what we thought they wanted. We didn't develop products because we thought they would be cool. We developed products because the customer wanted them and built them in the way that they wanted to work with them. And that made all the difference in the world. We realized in that particular instance that one of the biggest drivers of loyalty and of making selections and of upsell and cross-sell and share of wallet was personal interaction with that bank. It was a regional bank. They had 12 outlets or something. The largest driver of foot traffic was signage on the outside of the building. They wouldn't have known that if they hadn't done the research. The largest driver of coming back and long-term customer loyalty and duration, lifetime value, was knowing their name when they walked in the door of the bank branch. They would walk in the door, hey, Mr. McGillicuddy, what can we do for you today?
Personal
Made all the
relation.
difference in the world. They would never go to another place. They would never take their business to another place. They would never take their personal business to another place. They would never take their estate work to another place, or their trust, or any of that stuff that people don't even normally associate with a bank, all went there because they knew who they were. They knew their product. They knew their personality. They knew their needs. They knew what they wanted, and they treated them like human beings. They actually really did serve. Now, most businesses will say, yes, customer service is our differentiator. I beg to argue with almost all of them. This one particular case, it really, truly was a differentiator. When we based an entire television campaign on the fact that when you call customer service at this bank, a human being picks up, not a phone tree. Not press 3 for opening an account or press 4 to resolve a conflict. Is this call about your checking account? Press 2. None of that. Live service calls at the actual branch every day, 24/7. That's what made people come. They got tired of the phone trees. They got tired of being treated like a number. They got tired of being treated like an account. They wanted to be treated like a person. And that's why they stayed. But it took me 3 weeks worth of talking to customers to come up with that and analyzing those responses over hours and hours of interviews and reading those transcripts and dissecting them and analyzing what they were actually saying to come up with that. And that TV commercial was one of the most effective things they had ever done. They'd never done television before. They'd never done radio before. They're dealing with an older audience. Those are the trusted channels for an older audience. Throw all the social media you want at it. Yes, grandma's on Facebook looking at pictures of the grandkids, but she's not buying a bank based on what she sees on Facebook, but she might buy it if she hears it in the car on the way to the grocery, and she might buy it if she sees it on the 8 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news or, after Jeopardy on Fox. Got to go with what the audience has.
Yeah, that's great. Dave, has been fantastic podcast. The way you frame it, like marketing without research is just expensive guessing, and
Exactly.
yeah, and that's it, right? And AI doesn't fix a broken process; it
Nope.
just breaks it faster, right?
Just accelerates it. That's right.
Yeah, that's
Exactly right.
clear honesty a lot of operators need to hear. Where can people find you and Granite partners if they want to learn more or reach out?
I would say LinkedIn is probably the easiest. Simply go by my name and you'll find me. There's only one of me. There are lots of Pouluses, but there's only one of me.
Okay, perfect. That's good. And that's a wrap on this one. Big thanks to Dave for the marketing doctor view on research, port calls, and why AI readiness is the real questions. If you got something of it, do me a favor, hit subscribe, do a thumbs up, and yeah, let's see you on the next episode of Signal and Insights. Take care, everybody.